Hey guys, what is going on? We are in the zone. This is episode 198 today. I'm here as always with Giancarlo Aulino. And today, obviously, we're going to start with the lines, looking at FanDuel, looking at some of the NHL plays today. We always do this. It's Saturday. Saturdays for hockey, let's be honest. So quickly going to go through almost every game, talk about the lines that we like. First game that is on the slate, 1:10 p.m. start, Aulino. You got a big return. Claude Giroux is now making his return to Philly for the first time. What do you expect in this one? Do you like Ottawa on the money line here, or do you think Philly's hot run continues?
Yeah, I like Philly actually. I think Torts is really starting to get his kind of philosophy in there with the group, and I know Giroux coming back as always. Like even when he was on other teams like Florida, goes in and plays Philly. It's going to be something special. He was one of their focal points for a long time, so I think he could score today. I think early on, I think he'll struggle a little bit and try to look for his teammates, set them up, but if there's a prop out there for a point, I would go with Giroux. But I got Philly getting the win there over their former teammate.
Yeah, I love this line. I like this the over 6.5. I think the energy in the building is going to be very loud for Giroux. I think the boys are going to be motivated to get the win over Ottawa. And let's be honest, Aulino, they have not been good defensively. They've been struggling. Brady Tkachuk and Shane Pinto has been a pretty good surprise, but I think the biggest surprise here out of all players has been Kata Hat. How good he's been for Philly. He's looked amazing. I remember 2 or 3 years ago when he came up and he was looking very, very good. Some guys were saying that Carter Hart could be the next Carey Price. So he had a couple down years, and now it's looking again like he has his groove back. He's looking very good. And like you mentioned, man, Torts, when he gets his boys going, watch out for Philly. So I like Philly here at plus 102. I think they get the win here. And I do like the Claude Giroux assist. I think it's at like plus 120. So that's my opinion for that game. Next game we got here. This one to me looks like a letdown spot. You got Edmonton, who's been struggling. Jack Campbell, man, hate to see it. He has not been good. Florida, on the other hand, Matt Tkachuk is coming back, and Aaron Ekblad. One from suspension, one from injury. Minus 176 is a lot to lay for Florida, but what do you think about the over-under here? And do you think Edmonton can get out a win?
I think they could. It's going to rely on goaltending. Both teams, like both teams for goaltending, for the longest time they've been searching for that number one guy. Edmonton has been a revolving door for goalies, whether it's Smith, whether like Talbot came in, he was going to be the savior. Now Campbell comes in, he's struggling after they committed a lot of money to him. And Florida, they finally found their guy in Bobrovsky when he was killing it in Columbus, and hasn't really worked out for the most part. He's had some good years, had some bad years, but that's a lot of money he makes. And for him to be up and down, relying on a backup at times, I think Ekblad coming back will help calm things. I think his ice time might be managed a little bit differently. So I wouldn't be so opposed to going with Edmonton in this game just because of Ekblad. Like you don't know how he'll be in his return, and they might just play it safe with him.
Now, as well, talking about Edmonton for a second, we saw what happened with Evander Kane. He's out for 3 to 4 months. If there's one guy on this team, Alino, that can get Edmonton out of this funk, like this has been a really bad last couple games for Edmonton. They got blown out the other night, 7-2 against Carolina, and Carolina was on a back-to-back. So, we all know how great McDavid and Draisaitl are. They're the top two in scoring yet again for like the sixth year in a row. But when it comes to depth scoring, now that Evander Kane is gone, who do you think has to step up? Is it a guy like Puljujärvi, or do you think now there's a little more pressure on a guy like Zach Hyman?
Yeah, I think Hyman's going to always get that kind of pressure just because of the kind of salary he earned there. But he's a hard worker. He loves the game. He's a good pro. And I think Zacky's going to be one of those guys that does the little things to help him. I think Nuge is going to be a guy that he's going to probably have to slot in there on the second line, or even with McDavid if they want to switch things up and have somebody else go to center. But Puljujärvi, I think it's about time for him. Like I think he should be getting a little bit more not pressure, but just them relying on him at different times. Like I think the way he came into the league, they took it slow with him. He was a pretty highly touted pick. I think he's ready now to take a bigger role with the team. And I think with Evander Kano, this is perfect opportunity to prove that he's just as good and talented as some of the other guys in his draft class. And he was a guy that looked like he was a little upset with his role before, and I think this is a perfect opportunity. So I'll say Puljujärvi is going to step up, and I think Nuge is going to be in another role, and Hyman's going to have to be a grinder.
Yeah, I like Edmonton today, man. I think they get the win here in Florida. I think McDavid could get a goal too. I think his goal prop is at like plus 105 now. It was at plus 140 at some point, but he just scores every game. So I do like McDavid to score, and I like Edmonton here. Going now, this is a disrespectful line. I mean, New Jersey, I'm a New Jersey fan. I have been my whole life. They've been red hot. They've won 8 straight games, but minus 320 is way too much. Even at minus 1.5 is at minus 130. Are they disrespecting Arizona a little too much? Because if the playoffs are right now, Aulino, guess who's in the playoffs? Arizona. So it's been a great story for them. Lawson Krause looks pretty good. Keller's been phenomenal. He's been the pillar on offense. And of course, Nick Ritchie, man, he looks like he belongs in the NHL, no doubt about it. When he was in Toronto, people were saying, get this guy out of here. He's a Marley type player. Do you like Arizona today at plus 255?
I don't. I think this is just going to be one of those trap games. I think this might go to overtime, and New Jersey will squeak away a win. I think Arizona, though, they're not sticking to the plan right now. They're in this smaller arena trying to get the local group fan base and the group there to just get together, the young core, and build and continue to develop, and that stadium environment that they want to bring, that college atmosphere. They're trying to keep on building and building so like that when the other building that they're I think it's 3 years from now is ready, that fan base will translate over there. But if they keep making the playoffs, it's not going to get them Carter Bedard from the juniors. It's not going to get him on their roster. And then after ticket sales are going to rely elsewhere, and they're not the team that everybody looks to on TV. So I don't know. The selling point might have to be Keller. Maybe he's the guy. Doc, like those guys. I think we're gonna see a different side of Arizona. But if I'm their GM, I'm pretty upset because I have other plans, and this team is ruining them.
I agree perfectly there. I think you take Arizona at plus 1.5 here at plus money. I think is the safest. Arizona, obviously, when you look at the offensive prowess compared to the Devils, it's night and day. But if there's one thing we've learned with betting hockey is anything can happen any night. And I don't know if New Jersey's going to lose this game. Probably not, but I don't think they win by over 2 or 3 goals in this one. I think Arizona's hot. They're coming off a really big win against the Islanders. I like the way, I think it was actually a shutout. I think whatever I can't say his last name. I'm not going to pretend like I can. But I think Arizona here can keep it close. I like Arizona on the puck line at plus money. I think you got to take that every time when you see a puck line at plus money. Then we got the Bruins and the Sabres. Sabres, they just got their ass kicked by Jack Eichel last game. I think they're going to come out here. I think the fan base is a little bit hot after that recent performance. They allowed 7 goals at home. I think they sharpen it defensively. I think they have the ability. They have power. They have Dahlin, guys that I think are just absolute. I think they're going to be phenoms. I think Dahlin has shown that he could almost be like a Victor Hedman. Obviously, we'll see when and if Buffalo ever makes the playoffs. But Dahlin has looked great. Buffalo's young forward group has looked great. But Boston, man, they look like they're one of the best teams in the league again, getting back David Krejci overseas. They ended up re-signing Bergeron somehow when there were the retirement rumors. Who do you like in this spot, Aulino? And, do you like Buffalo bouncing back after that shellacking by Jack Eichel?
If it wasn't like such a bad loss, I would say yeah, but because of the way they lost, I think there's going to be a little bit of a slump for them. I think Boston gets the win comfortably, probably by 2 goals, and I think we're just going to see the veterans take over. I think Buffalo has shown a lot of potential there with Power and Darlene. Thompson's another one that stuck out to me, but I think they're gonna head over for, like, the next couple of games up and down. And I think this is part of it when they play teams like Vegas and Boston, teams that are like proven with veteran leadership. I think that's where they're gonna struggle, and they'll bounce back against like the teams like New Jersey or the Islanders, like somewhere around their level. So this is gonna be an up and down year for Buffalo.
I agree. Yeah, I think Buffalo has a lot of promise, but again, inexperience sometimes trumps the potential. And I think Buffalo, they have hell of they were really ballsy just letting Jack Eichel go. If this was a situation in Toronto where Matthews had a bad injury and we forced them out of town and we got guys, and I would never have the balls to do that. So Buffalo's management definitely saw something in Eichel and Krebs, and I mean, not Eichel, in Tuck and Krebs. And I think Tuck has been phenomenal. Tage Thompson, dude, oh my God. He looks incredible. So I think it's going to be a tough year for Buffalo. I think expectations are going to be a little higher than they should be. And I do like, to me, I got to go with over 6.5 here. I just think that's where Buffalo scoring, Boston, the top line looks like their usual selves. I like that there. But moving on, we got the Penguins and the Canadians. This one to me is hard to read. This might be the game I would stay out of just based on Pittsburgh is probably a little fatigued. They were throwing their body last night. They had 44 hits against the Leafs. Montreal is well rested. If I had to pick a prop here, I'm probably taking Cole Caulfield to score, and I'm probably going with probably under 6.5 at -115. Aulino, what are your thoughts on this game? And do you see Sid and the boys continue to roll?
I think so. I think Crosby's gonna have a big game. If I see a prop there, I would go for Crosby just because who he's playing. Usually, he's had great performances there against Montreal at the Bell Center. I think that's going to continue. Malkin played pretty well yesterday. I just see Montreal. It's going to come down to goaltending, which hasn't always been that great for them, especially with Price out, and they have to rely on other guys to hopefully create a tandem that they can go through with more than 1 year. But I actually like Pittsburgh's chances here. I think they're gonna continue rolling.
I like that. And then we got, of course, the Leafs and the Canucks. I mean, before we get into this game, I got to talk about yesterday with Boreas Solming, man. The guy's a legend, absolutely phenomenal. He is the greatest Leaf defenseman of all time. No doubt about it. I know a lot of the modern heads will say Riley, obviously, been with the team for 10 years, but you see what Boreas Solming was able to do, come from Sweden, one of the first Swedish players, I think actually the first Swedish-born player to play in the NHL. Just an absolute warrior. We see that he was diagnosed with ALS, and going out there, seeing Sundin and Siller have to hold him up basically, and Siller raising his hand. What did this mean for you, Aulino? Do you think the ovation was right? Do you think it was good enough? And what did you make of this being a pregame? Because I thought it was just so emotional.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think like for them to have this as a pregame was a lot, and it just shows them that they want to showcase the past of the team, and for him to even go on the ice and all that. Like I was actually surprised how they were gonna maybe have him in the stands, but like, it just shows, like, how they think of him and the other guys like Sundin and Sittler, what they think of him to wanna help him out, bring him on the ice with the rest of the Hall of Fame group. I think that was a nice gesture by the team, and it was a great moment that he deserves, like, just fans showing him appreciation, so that was a nice pregame moment for them.
Yeah, man, very emotional. My dad was at the game and he said there were not a lot of dry eyes. You see a guy like Boreas Solming, his play style he was a warrior. He was like a Scott Stevens back in the day. He would take pucks to the face. I remember my mom was telling me a story where some guy skated on his face and he had to get stitches and he looked like Frankenstein basically. So Salming was a warrior, and seeing him, fight that terrible disease, seeing, Sittler, his teammate for what, 7, 8 years on the Leafs, cry by his side. I think that to me was a lot to take in on a pregame. And it was just a shame to not see the Leafs win after that. But we got to now go into the line for today. I mean, last night was a tough loss. Shalgren didn't look too good yesterday. It's unfortunate to see what the fan base is kind of saying about Shalgren. He's trying his best. He's put in a tough spot here. There's no news right now on Matt Murray. I'm not really sure who would be starting today, but Leafs are still favored quite heavily here against the Vancouver team, who just has been struggling this whole season, especially their goaltending. Demko has not looked like himself. Do you like the Leafs here on the puck line at plus 144, or would you rather take the over here at 6.5 at minus 140?
Yeah, I like the Leafs actually on the puck line. I think, like you mentioned there, like Demko is a really talented goalie. It's just I don't know what's going on with Vancouver where their team and the record they have isn't something you would think, with just how talented they are. Like, look at all the guys they have, all the firepower. The defense is good. You have Quinn Hughes on defense, so that pushes things along. And then you have a guy like Demko who can play well over 60 games a year in net. I just don't know what's going on there. That's a puzzling thing. And for Vancouver and Arizona, like you would think their records would kind of be swapped around, but it's not. And I see a team like Toronto looking to bounce back, and this is a perfect game for Austin Matthews to come out there and get a nice 2-3 goal game. I think Marner's going to have a good game, and I think both teams will score a lot just because of who's in net, like Shalgren, and it's going to be one of those games for him. But I think he'll do enough to get the win, so I got the Leafs winning it.
Love it. And we got to go on now to another risky line here. The Islanders and the Blue Jackets. We just learned that obviously Werenski's out for the whole year. Dislocated his shoulder on that scary fall on the boards. Johnny Gaudreau's probably regretting going to Columbus, isn't he, Aulino?
Man, I don't know what he was thinking. He chose Columbus. Everybody wants to go to Ohio. That's what you hear in every other sport. So he's the first one. I'm gonna go Columbus. Actually, it's crazy it might sound. I think eventually they're due for one. Like, I think the Islanders are the perfect one if you're gonna have this kind of line out there. That, you know what, I can see Columbus getting the win. It doesn't seem too crazy. Like, just the talented guys they have, like Line A, they have Gaudreau. Those two on your team, they can make something happen and get a win here and there. So I think they'll start with the Islanders.
I like that. I agree with you. I think I would take the Blue Jackets to win the game today. I would take Line A to get a goal, and I would probably take the over 6 goals. Just I don't think Sorokin's playing today. I think it's Varlamov, and of course you look at the Blue Jackets goaltending. Merzlikins and Korpisalo, they've been a tandem for quite some time now, Aulino. I think it's been 3 or 4 years. So they're not getting the job done. They're not giving their defense any confidence. And when you have Werenski out now for the year, defensemen like Adam Boygfist have to step up. And I don't know if a lot of us hockey fans have faith in the Blue Jackets situation, but you said it perfectly. When you have Line and Gaudreau, two really talented offensive threats, if there is a spot where they can probably squeeze in a win, it's probably against an Islanders team where, let's be honest, they're rolling offensively. But when you think maybe 45 to 50 games in, they're probably a bottom 10 team in terms of goals for per game. So I like the Blue Jackets here to win at plus 205. I think that's the big return of the day. Then we got to go to the Rangers and the Predators. I took the Rangers the other night, Aulino, over 6 goals. They had 8 against the Red Wings alone. I don't know what it is. I think this is an under game. I think Saros and Shesterkin are the goalies. Both goalies have not been good to start the year. I think they both are due for bounce back performances. I don't trust Nashville at home. I don't trust the Rangers to win the game. I'm just going to go with the under 6 here.
I'm with you. That's the safest one, I think. Just looking at both teams, just the way they've been playing, very like under the radar type of stuff by the Nashville Predators. Like, you would think everything they invested in this group, Saros, ever since Pecorine was there, like they were kind of grooming him to be the next guy, and he finally becomes that starter that everybody thought he would be. And just seems weird. Like, Nashville seems like a team you would have where Vegas is right now. Like, they'd be leading the Western Conference with just how long they've been together, and it's kind of disappointing that they're struggling and it's not really coming up there. But I think the Rangers might be the team that wins tonight. I see a really low scoring game, like 1-1 going to overtime, maybe even a shootout. We'll see. And I got the Rangers winning.
I like that. And then we got probably the best game of the night, let's be honest. Carolina, Colorado. Just phenomenal. Two phenomenal teams, Stanley Cup favorites. Basically, if this was maybe the first week of the year, a lot of people were having this probably as the Stanley Cup final. Aulino, I know we're high on both teams. Carolina's looked great. Colorado, they're going through a couple injuries right now, but they still look phenomenal. It's really unfortunate what happened with Nishushkin. He's out indefinitely. Landeskog is expected back in January. So who do you like here? The lines are very, very close. I really don't know who wins this one. If I had to go just based on value, I'm probably taking Carolina.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think Carolina's a better pick. Like, I just like the sneaky moves they made. Like Brent Burns, that was actually one that you look at where he was in San Jose, they managed to just take him. I think there was some retained salary also that went the other way. So you add Burns to this kind of defensive core, I think that puts him over the top, and that could make him a contender by the end of the year. And I think Colorado, like Gorgiev and Frankos, like I think Kemper was a better pick if they kept him. And now they're just trying to find that same kind of 1-2 punch that they had last year, but hasn't worked out with all the injuries. So I got Carolina winning this one.
I love it. Then we go to the battle of the bottom feeders. We got the Blackhawks and the Ducks. Jesus, man, this one. This is either going to be like a 3-1 boring game or it's going to be a 7-5 score fest. I love the way that Jonathan Taves has looked. I would probably take maybe Taves to get a point in this one. What do you like here, Aulino? I think the Ducks at minus 137 is definitely not the play here. I think I would go with the Blackhawks to win this game and have Taves get a point.
Yeah, it's going to depend on how Taves and Kane are. Like if Taves can continue this stretch that he's on, this hot streak, I can see them getting the win. But I'll stick with the favorites here. I'll go with the Anaheim Ducks. I like the way Zegra's been playing, and Ducks fly together. Quack, quack, quack. They're winning this one.
I love that. We got the hottest team in hockey, the Vegas Golden Knights, the hottest player in hockey, and Jack Eichel getting 4 points the last game. And you got the Blues who are starting to get their mojo back. I think they've won two straight after losing 7 in a row in regulation. The goaltending has been the problem. The lack of scoring has been the problem for St. Louis. Not the same for Vegas. You got great production from Eichel, from Riley Smith, from Phil, from Mark Stone. Do you like the puck line here for Vegas, or do you think the Blues can get it done? Because honestly, man, I think eventually Vegas is due for a loss. I think it might be against St. Louis, but I'm not too sure. I'm staying away from this one.
I am too. The only thing I would do though, I'm gonna find Phil Kessel, and I think he scores a goal because he's on a little bit of a slump since he got his 400th goal. Like he'll get an assist here and there, but I think he's due for a goal here. And I think St. Louis, like this one's perfect. They're at home. Phil Kessel, if you can find like the prop there, I think it could be a real good return. So I got Phil the Thrill getting his 400th and first as he gets closer to the 1,000th consecutive games played mark.
Aulino, that bet would be plus 370 for Phil to
I'm
score.
doing it.
So whoever's listening, put that out there. That would get a nice return. Then we got the last two games. Quickly going to talk the Jets and the Flames. The Flames have been on a downward spiral. Huberto has not been great. Kadri has been, not going to lie. But again, Aulino, it's a very similar narrative here. Calgary has lacked depth in scoring. Manjapane hasn't been able to get it done. Blake Coleman hasn't been able to get it done. Winnipeg has been starting to heat up. Scheifele and Connor had slow starts to the year. Now they're starting to pick it up. I really like the value with the Jets. Call me crazy. I know the Flames are going to have to get out of this slump eventually. The Saddle Dome is usually really rowdy, but I just can't say no to Winnipeg right now. I would take Winnipeg here at plus 134.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick, especially like I don't know who's going to play in net. I don't know. Maybe if Hellebuck plays, I think Winnipeg gets it done. If not, I think there's going to be a little bit more of a high scoring game, and Calgary, just that atmosphere that their fans bring, and the coaching staff, the player, like Mangiapane has to get back on track. I think he was a player last year that really not surprised people, but like I think he overachieved of what people thought, and he was a real like threat against some of these teams that they had to really look out for, other than like Gaudreau. But now with Huberto in the mix, you have Kadri in the mix. I think this team is finding their identity, and I think they could snap this little cold streak. But if Hellebuck is in net, I got Winnipeg winning.
I like that. And then we got the final game of the day. The Kings are coming off a back-to-back. I don't understand why they're at minus 230. They just played last night. The Red Wings, yeah, they got pumped last game, but it was against probably the best power play unit in the league in New York was Zibanejad, Panarin, Kreider. Those three with the chemistry, even Adam Fox, just absolutely phenomenal power play. I really love the value here with the Red Wings, man. They have to bounce back. Dylan Larkin has been phenomenal. I think he's one of the most underrated players in the National Hockey League. Mo Seider has to get going eventually. Husso and Nedeljkovic, Aulino, pretty good goalies if you ask me. I just think the Kings might be a little fatigued. They played also that game went to overtime. I got to go with the Red Wings here in maybe not regulation. That's a little bit of a stretch, but Red Wings to win at plus 188. Give me that all day long.
I like it. I like the Red Wings here. LA. Kopitar has been a really nice story. Just when it looked like people were counting him out a little bit and saying, okay, he's going to decline, retire. He turned that around and became one of the best stories, I think, in the last couple of years in the league. And Jonathan Quick has been another one that looked like there were times he's going to retire. Like, does he really still have any game left in him? And it's been pretty reliable considering like his age, and obviously he's not the player he once was, the goalie he once was when they were on that Stanley Cup dynasty there. But I think LA is a team that's under the radar in the Western Conference. It could be a challenger for a wild card spot, but I think Detroit, I got faith in them, and I think they're going to get a win here.
I like that. Well, that's the lineup for hockey today. We want to quickly go to the NBA, and then we'll talk about WWE and AEW. First, I mean, looking at the slate for today, there's a lot of games, not as many as yesterday, obviously, but to me, like the game that really stands out for me in terms of betting, I got to go with the Clippers Nets. I just think this is a game where Kevin Durant has been able to own the Clippers in his career. I think if you take maybe Kevin Durant over the point total, I think it's at 29.5. I know it seems high. It's just there's no Kyrie, no Ben Simmons. Who else is going to be scoring? I got to take Kevin Durant over his points and probably Brooklyn to win the game at plus 100. I know Paul George has been phenomenal. I just like Brooklyn in this situation.
Yeah, I do too, especially with like Kawhi out. And when Kawhi's out, it's like, okay, Norm Powell might get some minutes, but he doesn't get enough role or enough of a role to like stay in the game long term and really get going like he did on the Raptors and sometimes in Portland. But he's been a guy that's been a good bench player, comes in and scores points. I think they need to really put him in there with Paul George and just try to get some more chemistry. And I think when he's out and then comes in, it just kind of ruins that and it throws the whole game off. So I think that's a big mistake that they haven't really been able to utilize Norm Powell. But with Paul George, he's a streaky guy. He'll get his points. Like John Wall will probably get his assists. But with KD, especially, it's disappointing that Ben Simmons is out because with Kyrie suspension, this is a time where Ben Simmons could have took over there and just snap that whole narrative from Philly that he's not good. He's like a player who's not worthy of being a first overall pick and all that. Like this was a big opportunity for him and he's out. So this is a KD show this afternoon, and I think he's going to get 35 points.
I love that. I agree. Aulino, in terms of betting basketball, do you usually do money lines? Do you do player props? Like, what's the one type of category that you like? Because I can't get into totals at all with basketball, man. Like, over under for hockey I can get into, but over under in basketball, I can't do it.
Yeah, and you even see the trends too, like just looking at what like even on Twitter, just seeing what people do. Not a lot of people are going on that like over under because some guys are on a back to back. Some guys are just with nagging injuries, especially basketball, where they're playing 34 minutes one night and they're expected to play the afternoon the next day, and they're not going to have that same impact. So it's probably best if you look at guys' points per game, and if you see that they're getting 15 to 20, try to go in that range, and eventually you're going to see something where a KD will get like 30 to 40 and his prop will be 33. I think that's like a realistic target. So I would look at realistic point targets. Like if Ben Simmons's total is going to be 20, I think that will be off the charts. And
Yeah.
stay if you want to do that and be risky, that's a good one to do because eventually he'll hit it. Like we saw in Philly, he'll have a good game. He won't shoot any 3-pointers, but he'll get 10 layups here and there. So I would look at those, manage a certain risk there, but I would look at the point total most of the time.
Is there any other games, Aulino, today that you kind of look at and say, yep, I'm going to bet on that game? Because I look at the Celtic game and they're taking on the Pistons. I got to go with Jaylen Brown over his points because the guy last night went like 10 of 14 from the field. Detroit is, I think, without Cade Cunningham. I got to go with Boston. I got to go with Jaylen Brown here. I think he's a guy that definitely is undervalued in any book because they have Jason Tatum. And Detroit defensively, man, they're very young. They're very inexperienced. The total's at 227.5. So that should tell you how efficiently of a scoring team Boston is. I got to go with Jaylen Brown over points, 100% in this one.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And like you were mentioning there, like just the kind of stretch they're on, I think that would be a good one. I don't know what Tatum's is at. It's probably like similar because both those guys are, if one guy's going, the other one's usually not far behind. So that one's a good one. I would maybe go at the Raptors in Indiana just because with Siakam like not there, somebody it's like pick your poison type of thing. One of the players is going to get 20. So it could be OG, it could be Gary Trent, it could be Scotty Barnes. So like I think if you can like play whoever, do any meeny miny mo type of thing, and see if your luck will go there. I would pick one of those three to have a big night because with Siakam out, that leaves a bigger role for one of those other three.
Yeah, even with the Raptor game, Aulino, Halliburton's been on fire. I'd probably take his under because, like for points, rebounds, assists, I'd probably take his under because we're a tall team. Probably not going to get as many rebounds as he usually does. And even looking at the Raptors, even to maybe even win the game outright, I think is a good bet. They got blown out last night to OKC. They're going to be motivated to bounce back. Scotty Barnes in the second half last night, at least in the third quarter, because again, the fourth quarter they didn't play because they were getting killed. He looked motivated. He looked angry. So I like Scotty Barnes to get over his points today, and I like the Raptors to win. I think Indiana's a very vulnerable team. They're good, but not as good as people think. And how about Benedict Mathurin over his points? Because he's a Canadian boy taking on the Raps. He's probably going to be motivated to go over.
Good Canadian kid.
Any other plays, Aulino, you like? I know you're a big Pelicans guy.
I am, and I think JV. It's like hit and miss with him. Like he'll get a big night, then the next game he'll go cold, but he'll at least be reliable on the rebounds. And playing against the Rockets, I like my chances there. So Zion, I think he'll have more rebounds. I think it'll be a game where triple double type of stuff, like 15, 10, and 15 type of thing. I think he's going to have more rebounds, and the assists will come just because of Ingram. Like they play off well. Ingram, I think, gets 20 and leads the offense there. So I like those two guys.
As of right now, Aulino, JV's points plus rebounds is at 24.5, and it's at minus 122. I'm
Dang.
circling that. I'm doing that all day. The Rockets give up so many rebounds. Şengün is pretty good, but their rookie Jabari Smith just, I don't know what it is. He's lacking the confidence in the paint. JV's been a bully his whole career in the paint. Give me JV over points and rebounds in that one. And I would also sprinkle Zion to go over his points because who the hell's guarding him in Houston? I can't really give you a name. So I'll go with Zion to get over points, and I'll even go JV over points and rebounds because he's just that dominant. And for me, obviously, due to end the day for the basketball lines, I gotta probably go to the late game. And I think it's going to be an absolute shootout between Lillard and Luka Doncic. I think they're both going to go over their point totals. Battle of who can get more points. Luka has been pretty bad the last two games. He's gone under his lines in the last two. I think they're going to be motivated at home. It's going to be a bounce back game for him. And when Dame Dollar is on, 30 points looks like 20 for him. So I like both of their over in points in that one.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think they both get that, and I would look at Bullock and Finney Smith because those guys are streaky, but when they score, it's always a 3-pointer. So if you can get value out of those two, sometimes they don't really have like one will have a good 3-point night, the other one might get one and then struggle. They'll go 1 for 5, but I think they'll both actually have a good night against a team like Portland. I think it's a good matchup for them. So I would go 2 threes for both Bullock and Finney Smith tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Reggie Bullock's or Finney Smith's line right now is at 9.5 points, which that I don't know if that's
Four
insulting.
threes.
Yeah, like I feel like that might be a little too low, but he's favored to go under that line. Doncic Aulino is at 32.5 points.
Man.
That's a lot of points. And I think the best play is Lillard over 24.5. I think he can get 30 in his sleep. I would take Damian Lillard to get 24.5 against a Mavericks team that just they can't spell defense. So I'm gonna go with Damian Lillard as the best bet in that one to get over his points. But now we got to go to WWE. We're gonna talk about Crown Jewel. I can't believe Logan Paul's on the poster, man. Like looking at that, that was so funny. I didn't. I watched. I think I watched one or two matches. I wish I watched more of it. I heard it was a great show, but I heard Logan Paul Aulino had a pretty good performance. I know he had a really bad injury. I think he tore his ACL. He's out for a long time. But what did you overall think of the show, and who stood out to you the most? Because apparently it was Logan Paul.
Yeah, that was actually I wasn't expecting that. I thought it'd be like a 15, 20 minute, kind of like what we saw Logan Paul's other matches where we'll see some high spots, we'll see the run in. The run in I thought was gonna happen. That was the Usos flopping like that. Like that was rough, but it got them on social media. That's what they wanted to begin with, the Jake Paul stuff. So that was just for Twitter and Instagram, and it worked. So kudos to Triple H for thinking that one up. But I think that, yeah, Logan Paul stood out. That Hangman Page type finish he did. I think that's where he tore the meniscus and ACL and MCL. I was reading, so he looked like he did it better than Hangman Page too, so good for
Yeah,
him
he
on
did.
that. He filmed himself doing that frog splash on Roman. That went viral. So WWE, I think it's a win for every area. They won on social media. They had a nice show there. They got their $50 million in the bank from Crown Jewel. So I think that was a success. Braun Strowman versus Omos really surprised me. I was not expecting this match. I had low expectations. Had a pretty entertaining little monster tilt over there. So I think those two stood out for me.
I really like the way they really like the whole build up for Lesnar Lashley. I thought was pretty monumental on Raw, man. You see the whole roster basically come out. Remember back in 2012 when it was Cena and Lesnar, and they had the whole locker room come out and break them up, and Cena had the fat lip and all that. And I thought they really built Lashley here. They put Lesnar through the announce table on Raw, really made Lashley look strong, and then 6 minutes. I mean, I thought it could have been a little longer, a little underwhelming for me, but I did hear that Lashley attacked Lesnar after the match. But then on Raw, you see him basically cost Theory the cash in. So is he a face? Is he a heel? And what do you do next with Lashley now that Lesnar's probably going to be MIA for a bit?
Yeah, I think they could have to. They're probably planning this for WrestleMania, which I think that's going to be the match that they actually go all out on. So I think this one served the purpose. If it was just the one off having this and they already had a different plan for Mania, I think it would have been a lot more negative, like fans' reaction. But the way it ended, I think they made a little bit of a mistake there. Like Brock, like I think they were planning something. He was just too far away. It looked like the Bret Hart spot that you would do, where flies off the rope, flips over, and does the pin. But he just fell on top of him, and they just went with it, just pin him and end the match. So those two, I think it saved Bobby Lashley, makes him look like a monster at the end. Heel. I think the Hurt Business might be forming again after that outcome, but where's Shelton Benjamin's loyalty gonna lie? I think that's gonna be the interesting one because him and Brock go way back. Lashley turned his back on him and Cedric Alexander, so I think MVP and Cedric might be with Bobby Lashley, but I think Shelton Benjamin's gonna be looking at Brock and might have a 2-on-2 going out.
That would be interesting. I don't know how that would look nowadays. I know back in the day, those two were looking like one of the most athletically gifted competitors in WWE. But when you don't do anything for Shelton Benjamin for so many years, and all of a sudden he's in a big program with Brock Lesnar, the guy that's been on top of WWE for what 10+ years now since coming back. I think it's going to be interesting to see if that does happen. But if this is going to be for WrestleMania, who do you have win? Is it going to be a usual Lesnar win, or do you think Lesnar is at that point now where he could look himself in the mirror and say, last year's had a hell of a year. He was a top 5 wrestler in the magazine there, which I thought was a big deal. I think for Lashley, that's a big deal. Do you have Lesnar put Bobby over at Mania, or do you think this is just another win for Lesnar?
I would like before this whole turn or whatever they were doing with Lashley, I would have probably said, you know what, Lashley gets the win, Brock gets his win again and ends the feud after Bobby wins both. But the way they've been building it is like Lashley being the one that gets more of the offense in, Lesnar's like the underdog in the match, and he can't beat Lashley. I wouldn't be surprised if they actually have Lashley win the third match at Mania and have Lesnar be like that his whole career. Like he couldn't beat Bobby Lashley until like the Goldberg thing where he beats him at the end. So they can even drag this on where they both go their separate ways after WrestleMania, and maybe a year or two, maybe Bobby Lashley decides he wants to retire down the line, even though he looks amazing at his age and still performs well. Like you can have Lesnar do it, and that will be him getting his win finally, like he did with Goldberg, where he beats Goldberg, and that was a guy he never could beat, and he finally did it.
Well, you said it perfectly, Aulino. I think it was last week when we were talking about it with this could probably lead to both of them eliminating each other from the Royal Rumble. Do you think both those guys need to be in the Rumble? Because honestly, I look at the names and I look at the star power. I don't really know if they need to be in it. I think at this point in time, obviously Lashley's a guy that he's won the WWE title, he's won the US title multiple times the last year and a half, and he's made it relevant. Don't get me wrong. He's been incredible in almost every match he's been in, but I don't really know if they really need to put that in the storyline where they cost each other, because I don't want this to be so similar to Goldberg and Lesnar from a couple of years ago. Because yeah, there's new fans that come in every single year, but guys like us who've seen it, I think that might downgrade the feud. So, do you agree with me on that, or do you think that's just another element that they need to add to this feud?
I do agree with you. I think like if they don't need that. Like they can easily find another creative way. Like they just did it on Raw. Like Lashley tossed Mustafa Ali through the back crates there backstage. Like he was just going off on theory after. Like this guy's a menace backstage. So they don't need to do the Royal Rumble spot. I just think with Triple H now in charge, like obviously ego is gonna be in there too. So he wants to have his first Royal Rumble, put his stamp on things. Like he can do this creatively better than what's been done in the past, like under Vince McMahon. So I think he's gonna go all out with this Royal Rumble on both sides, of men and women. I wouldn't be surprised if you see a lot of surprise entrants in the men's that we haven't seen in a long time. Like I think Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold, The Rock, like one of them or two of them, I think we can see in this just to get that big surprise factor and just to show like Triple H wants to be known as okay, he can have these kind of Vince McMahon gimmick matches and he can do it better and creative and get that fan reaction that they want for every single match that follows. So I think that's why we'll probably see a Lashley Lesnar double elimination.
Well, I just want to quickly go on here. Damage Control did exactly what I didn't want them to do. They won the tag team titles back at the show. I don't understand this, Aulino. I know obviously you want to get the viewers up. You want Asuka and Alexa Bliss to look more dominant, but to me, this just did not look good at all. And I'm pretty sure Alexa Bliss got hurt in this match. What do you think about this whole feud? Because I think it's been dragging on too long, and we saw on Raw Asuka and Io kind of go at it, which I thought was perfectly well executed. But when are we going to start saying Asuka needs to be that singles competitor again? Because, dude, we got to see it, right?
Yeah, that was like 8 Mile battle rap type stuff in Japanese with Asuka and Io going back and forth. And I think after Survivor Series, like they're planning a feud there, like Asuka and Io. Maybe that's a singles feud after. But with the War Games match being announced, I think this is a way to get Sasha Banks as that surprise competitor. I think Naomi's gonna follow, or they can have Naomi be the one to join the team, and then Sasha Banks comes out after the match as a heel, teasing a babyface run, but she ends up attacking Bianca Belair and challenges her for the title. So there are a lot of interesting things you could do there. Like Charlotte Flair hasn't been on TV in a long time, so she's eventually due to return. So there's a lot of stuff they can do there, but I'm with you. I think they need to finally go in another direction other than this whole tag team scene with Asuka.
And then, of course, we go to, I mean, speaking of Charlotte Flair, there was the whole rumor of her joining the OC. But we got a different, we got someone different. Again, I'm not going to say it was underwhelming or anything, but just some type of surprise that I didn't see coming. Mia Yim comes back and joins the OC to take on, I guess, Judgment Day. Judgment Day got the win at Crown Jewel. The Rhea problem was a problem at Crown Jewel. What did you think about the way Dominic looked and just the way that Judgment Day looked? Because honestly, man, I think since that whole last man standing match with Edge, I think the momentum has shifted in Judgment Day's favor, and I like the way they're booking them.
Yeah, I thought Dominic was gonna get the win there. Like that's what my prediction was. I thought he was gonna hit that frog splash and get the win. He did lead to helping Finn get that pin, but I think that's what they're doing. Make Finn Balor like as a focal point, as a leader. They're trying to build that out there that he's a top guy in the group. I think eventually though, when like Edge comes back, like there has to be something where Beth Phoenix gets her revenge. Like she got a chair to the head for crying out loud. Like they can't just end it there. And Edge, like who's he gonna go after, type of thing. So uh unfortunately, like good to see her get her job again in WWE, but the crowd did not like give them that reaction I think they hoped, and it came off as underwhelming. So I think just how she came back and the crowd not really responding is unfortunate for that whole situation.
I think, Alino, call me crazy. I want to see Edge take on Finn Balor at WrestleMania in a similar match that we saw from Mick Foley and Edge at WrestleMania 22. He come on, man. Like his wife got a chair to the head. Like that definitely has to spark some anger and Edge. I think coming back, he's gonna be on a mission to get at Finn Balor, get a Judgment Day. And what would be better than leaving Beth out of it and just saying, hey, I'm gonna actually go out and face Finn Balor in a last man standing match or a hardcore match or a Hell in a Cell, whatever way you want to go about it. Make this a bloody war. Because I think Triple H is the guy when you look at creative that can pull off a match like that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think they can't just end it the way they did. I think like that would be a little underwhelming on that whole feud just because of it was Edge who started the group, then tries to recruit AJ and Finn and all these guys, and Finn looks like he's joining them. It looked promising, like Finn's gonna join Edge, like this could be interesting, but turns on him, he becomes a leader. Like they have to find an ending to this, and the match that they had ending the way it did, it just kind of didn't make sense. So I would be like pretty excited if they do it right at WrestleMania, but like Michael Cole on commentary going after Dominic Mysterio, like he hates this little guy, man. It looks like he's hated him since he was a little kid backstage, and he's taking it out every time he sees him on TV now as an adult. So it's gonna be interesting how Ray gets back in this feud after.
Ray, yeah, he's going for the IC title right now. He's loving life. He's avoiding his son and trying to go for that belt against the guy that's 3 times his size. But hey, if there's anybody that could beat a big man, it's Rey Mysterio, right? But I want to quickly end with, talking about Drew McIntyre and Karrion Kross, and this feud has gone on way too long. I think what we saw on SmackDown last night with Drew and Sheamus basically teaming up and going off against the Bloodline. Does this signify, Aulino, that we might be seeing Sheamus get that WWE title opportunity against Roman Reigns?
I think so. I think War Games is gonna be the SmackDown men, and I guess the women's side they're doing just the Raw women. So if they do that, then that means Sheamus, Drew, uh, maybe I don't know if both Brawling Brutes. Maybe they'll find someone else to take that spot. Maybe Kevin Owens comes back into it, and they take on the whole Bloodline, and they have Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn go at it in there, and I see Sheamus being the guy that after Survivor Series in December, they're gonna probably have a big SmackDown before the end of the year. I can see them booking it around Roman Reigns versus Sheamus, and the fella gets that big pop from the crowd as he goes after the Tribal Chief.
I think it's well deserved, to be honest. We've been talking about it for 2 months now. It started with that match against Gunther. We knew it would be a classic, but how much of a classic we weren't sure. It was match of the night, arguably match of the year. And they haven't looked back since with Sheamus. Yeah, shout out to him. He got married. He took a bit of a breather, but he comes back and he still has that momentum that we all know and love. And seeing him last night team up with Drew was awesome because we know how many times those guys have gone at it, and they fought in a bar, they fought in the ring, they've had all these different matches, and they always come back being best buds. So I really like seeing how they went with Drew and Sheamus going up against the Bloodline, something different. It gets Drew away from Karrion Kross, and I know it was a big loss for Karrion Kross, but it had to be done, right? Like that feud has been going on for so long, and I just think at some point in time we're probably going to see Drew versus Gunther for the Intercontinental title. I don't know if that's going to be at the Rumble. I don't know if that's going to be at Mania, but I do think at some point we're going to see Drew take on Gunther, and we're going to see Roman take on Sheamus. I think that's the direction that everybody wants SmackDown to go in, and I think that's money, man. I think those are two matches that are just screaming potential, but as well, we got to go with Bianca Belair. She beat Bayley, last woman standing. Do you think this was the right call here? Because, Damage Control winning the titles back and made for a little more of that predictable outcome. And Bayley did not win the title. Do you see her ever winning the title? Or do you think this is just a big roadblock for Bayley against Bianca? Because I would love to see Bayley win the title and have Sasha come back and be a face. But at the same time, you have that big option with Sasha coming back, like you mentioned, and taking on Bianca as a heel. So, which direction do you think they'd rather go in, Aulino? Do you think Bayley's going to win that title or kiss that goodbye?
Yeah, I think for now we'll kiss a goodbye, and I think they'll do Becky Lynch versus Bayley, and I don't know if it could be a good secondary feud now that it looks like they're really establishing Bianca Belair's title reign as like a long-term play and something that can even go past WrestleMania if they book it right. So I think they can have a good secondary feud there. You can have Becky come back and go after Damage Control, and they can go one-on-one. And down the line, maybe she turns face Bailey, and that's how they want to have the title around her again. Because they already did the whole long-term heel run with her as champ, and she showed that she can do something different with her character. So maybe she turns up babyface again and brings her NXT character back.
Well, I'd love that, man. That would be interesting. That'd be something different. But obviously there was a lot going on now in AEW. A lot, so much. In regards to CM Punk and what happened with Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks and what happened. But it's now starting to finally revolve around the guy that all of us thought it would revolve around, and it's MJF, man. The guy put on that hell of a promo. John Moxley has had a hell of a run in AEW. Every guy that he's gone up against, whether it's Bryan Danielson, whether it's Hangman Page, whether it's CM Punk, he wins every single time. He's also beaten Kenny Omega. But in this situation, Aulino, I think it's starting to finally come to fruit on that MJF might finally win that big title. Do you see it happening? And what do you think the implications would be for AEW moving forward? Because I said to you before the pod went live, this guy might be the face of wrestling for the next 15 years.
I think it's a long overdue and well deserved title run if he gets it. I think he should. Like, I think people forget too. John Moxley in September after All Out, he even said in the first promo after he was supposed to be on vacation after that. So he has been working now an extra 2 months after that. He gets a nice payday too because he signed a nice lucrative extension there. So they took care of him and rightfully so. But I think he will, after Full Gear, be gone for like maybe a month or 2 months. I think he deserves it with what he did for the company. So MJF winning the title makes a lot of sense, and that's going to be something where they can finally go in that direction that everybody thinks they should have gone in earlier this year. MJF holding the title and giving him what he deserves on TV, more time, and instead of just throwing him in the back and having him go out and be upset with the company. So I think him winning the title opens up a lot of things because all ego Ethan Page, good Canadian kid, he's starting to get some more TV time too as a heel. They turn their back on him with the firm, and I think that makes a lot of sense for the end of the year. And there's a lot of guys too that MJF hasn't feuded with that would be interesting in AEW.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, for me, the most intriguing thing, even though it is overdue, is the talent in AEW that he could go up against. MJF, we don't know, we have no idea if he's a heel or face. And that's what I love about him. He can just go out there. This whole thing could be a ploy. It could literally be Ethan Page helping MJF win, and we would just be like, "Oh my god, this is obviously a master plan by MJF," or MJF is one of the top baby faces in wrestling, and we don't even know it yet. So there's so many directions you can go with MJF. Ricky Starks is a guy to me. We've said it before. Give him a year. He's probably going to be in the same situation MJF is in. I think Hangman Page is due for a big match with MJF eventually. I don't know when, but like, what are the implications, Aulino, with a guy like the Cleaner coming back? Is he going to be a guy that just sets his sights immediately on a guy like MJF who is inexperienced at that top level? Because that's a match that we all want to see, man. Come on.
Yeah, I think eventually that's going to be a good one. I think the Cleaner, like I think he probably came back too soon, so this whole suspension probably long term for his in-ring style and in-ring work was probably going to help him and benefit him, even though the situation, like he missed the first Canada show. A lot of fans were upset that he wasn't even like a surprise entrant or something on the Dynamite. So that was a negative light for the company. Like a lot of them wanted to see Kenny Omega, and obviously, the suspension made it difficult. So, him at least getting another month off, 2 months off where he's not wrestling, it probably is going to make sure he's more healed than what he was when he came back and was probably too early. So, it's going to be, I think, a trios title situation. We might see them go after Pentagon, Phoenix, and our boy there, Pac. So, that's a good feud. I think that has something that they can do for the next 2 months. But eventually, I think Kenny Omega as a singles guy, that's the kind of guy you want in the main event scene.
Absolutely. And I want to just close out our show today talking about the Ayatollah, the guy that just continues to age like fine wine. He has been money with the whole ROH titles. We saw Cole Cabana come back, which I thought was absolutely a kick in the nuts to a certain guy. And what do you think is gonna? What do you think the conclusion is, Aulino, with this whole feud? Do you see Garcia being the guy to go over Jericho at the end of the day, or do you think it's more of a guy like a Bryan Danielson who's gonna avenge the company that basically made him a household name?
Yeah, I think this is going to be like really long term because like I think Jericho holding the title is just trying to get more attention on Ring of Honor as much as possible. Like they had Bryan Danielson, then they had Claudio win it, and probably weren't seeing like that kind of impact where okay, everyone's searching up Ring of Honor and stuff like that, and seeing the same kind of social media attention and even on Google, like YouTube. So I think Jericho holding the titles, making people look at the history of Ring of Honor, learning more about it that maybe they didn't know about Ring of Honor in the past. So this is going to probably go until they get a TV deal for Ring of Honor. And that's, I think, when they'll have Jericho drop the title to some other past champion, or maybe like a Garcia, like you mentioned, like someone they can go with the future with and have him be on that brand long term.
I just don't see how it could be a past champion. If it's gonna be a past champion, I think it has to be Bryan. Because again, the way he lost to Jericho at that pay-per-view back, it was a good match. I just thought the way it ended was kind of like, oh, okay, this is another way of making Bryan look strong. Jericho wins with the ref his back turned, and I just think Bryan is the guy. But again, if you do want to go in a different direction based on future, there is that trend in AEW right now with guys like Ricky Starks who are probably going to come up and have a push. Orange Cassidy, man, the guy just continues to do it. You have MJF now, who is about our age in the main event. I think if you want to go in that trend, you go with Garcia to maybe dethrone Jericho. But at this point in time, man, I think Bryan is probably the most likely if they're going to go off of past champions. So either way, I'm really intrigued with that storyline. It does bring that history back to ROH, and it brings people to searching ROH because they weren't doing it before when Jericho was not the champion. So they're doing something right there. Obviously, there are a few flaws in AEW right now, but I think eventually they're gonna start hitting it home again. I think guys like Rusev, guys like Buddy Murphy and Aleister Black. Yes, I'm saying all their WWE names, but I think eventually those are three guys that are gonna have to start being a little bit more selfish, maybe going backstage and saying, I need a little more in this company. Even a guy like Andrade, man, this guy has to do more than what he's doing. So they do have the talent in AEW with a guy like MJF or Kenny Omega in the main event. That opens the door for so many opportunities. And I think AEW, regardless of backstage shenanigans, I think they're in a good place, man, honestly. So with that being said, we talked a lot today. NHL, NBA, WWE, AEW, all the good stuff. This was episode 198 today. This is Aulino and Chris signing out. Make sure to follow us on all our socials. Until then, see you next week for the Gretzky episode 199.